Hey everybody, Mark Herman, aka LA Bengals fan on most major platforms, and I am joined here, as always, with superfan Devin Circus and Jake Circus of the Jake Circus podcast, and this is free agency episode of Jungle Talk. Yeah, hard to hard to get fired up though with what we've seen so far from the Bengals at free agency, but
Well, I
we'll
feel like the show's over. We said hello and we said goodbye, and
yeah,
that's
well, that's pretty much what the Bengals have done with free agency is say hello and say goodbye. Um, let's before I forget, if you don't subscribe, please subscribe. It's all we ask. If you have any comments, throw them down. If you think we didn't address something or there's a player we should be going after, please throw that in the comments. And Jake does some amazing podcasts. Tell them about your podcast, Jake.
Jake Circus podcast on Spotify and YouTube. We have not got an episode up in a while. It's been busy times.
Yeah.
But you can follow me on Twitter at Jake Circus for some hoops slash golf picks
All
this
right.
time
And
of year.
do we have an NCAA? Do we have any games this weekend that are relevant? I know it's Selection Sunday, Sunday.
All the games are
Tournament.
relevant. Depends
Yeah.
what you want.
yeah.
No, I
It
don't
is
know.
watching it.
Throw out a couple nuggets. Give the people a little maybe a game and a team to look for if you wanted to bet a future on the tournament.
All
So
right.
so just think about it. We'll do that at the end. So but let's touch on a little news and then we'll jump into the lack of activity in free agency. The
If you
Bengals.
got news to talk about, Mark, I'm gonna be impressed.
Okay, here you go. We did not get a compensatory pick. Nugget number one. And it was I was surprised by this because I really thought with the departure of Jonah Williams and Reeder that we would have gotten something. But I guess the formula we got offset with Trent Brown and Rankins. And it's really disappointing if Rankins cost us a compensatory pick because he was kind of a bust. Yeah, I don't know how the formula actually works. I guess they figure Geno Stone into that, but we also lost a Wouzier. So I don't like I said, I don't know exactly how the formula works. I was hoping for one. We got nothing.
You know
So
what?
We were actually talking about this a couple
Yeah.
days ago, and Jake's point was nobody in the world knows how that formula works other than the NFL offices and a couple of geeks. Because if you remember, it was either last year or the year before. The Bengals were given a 6 for Jesse, which was offset with Orlando Brown, if I'm not mistaken. And then some geek went on a Twitter rampage, and it got changed to a 3. I have no idea how it works. I thought we'd get something for Reader. Completely forgot about Awuzie and Jonah. Obviously, the guys we brought in didn't do anything. The only thing I can think of is that it has to do with, and I feel like I remember reading this somewhere, games played and snaps played, and DJ played the most out of all of them, but Rankins didn't play a lot. Brown didn't play a lot. DJ missed time. But I have no idea. I'm with you. I thought we'd get something for
I
DJ.
was just expecting one. I didn't
Right.
expect
And
one
if it
we had
would have been
offset a
a 6,
little.
nobody would have said anything. Sure, you always want the 3 or the 4, but I don't know. I don't get it. And
Yeah, so
none of the Schefters or Rappaports or reporters are smart enough to know how it works to talk about it. So who knows?
yeah, I don't like I said, maybe it's one of those things. Maybe there is no formula. Maybe they just sit around and say, "Nah,
There,
let's not give them anything." I mean,
there is a formula. You can find it online. I don't think that the reporters know it by heart, or else I think they would be explaining, based on all. And I don't need to get into this right now. The etiquette of what the reporters have been doing this week on social media, but like I don't care enough to know how it works. But what's funny to me is that the same teams every year get these compensatory picks and get the good ones, and those are the teams that are out there signing free agents for big contracts. They're also losing a lot of players, but those are the ones like the Eagles and the Niners. Those are the ones that the teams who are making moves, and the Bengals like have made moves in the last couple of years and just don't seem to be getting any of these picks ever. So I don't know how it works. I'm not gonna pretend to know how it works, but
I think the
just
Niners are going
funny
to
to
get a
me.
couple of first rounders next year for what they're doing this year in free
It
agency.
might.
no. Well, it's like I said, I just hope for one we got none. The go through some of the releases and some of the signings. Obviously, we tagged T. We knew that was coming. I mean, you get him for 26 million. I mean, that's way below the wide receiver market as we've seen. The We released Kappa, who signed with the Raiders. We released Rankins. Didn't he go back to the Texans?
I didn't see him sign.
I thought he went.
Yes, I believe so.
I thought he went back to the Texans, but once again, that was a bust. You know, it's Sorry, I forgot to turn off my ringer, so I'll have to play through that. We brought back Samaje Perine, and they made like this big deal about this. I mean, I do like the fact that he's a good pass blocking running back, but I just, with not extending, not getting T to a long term deal, not getting Chase done, all the stuff going on with Trey, and we'll get into that. Those are the three things we wanted to see. You can't crow about P. Ryan or signing Gasecki and Hudson, and we can go through it. We are keeping Cam Sample, Osai, BJ Hill, Cody Ford, extended at Cal Alamitis, Ryan Renko. None of this is exciting stuff. I mean, we're just retaining, big yawn.
Oh, sorry.
Oh yeah, that would be that, it's been it's been a very frustrating, and we've watched the Bengals. I'm going to throw this in there and then let you guys go. We watched the Bengals literally cost themselves money. If we had extended T and Chase already before the Metcalf contract, or done something with Trey before the Crosby contract, I mean, they're literally sitting still playing this waiting game like it's going to benefit them, and they're costing themselves money.
It just easily could have gone the other way. I don't buy that. It's business. Did they lose this year? Yes. They done Jamar a year ago. Would it have been 8 million a year cheaper? Sure. Trey, I don't get into that because it's real easy. It's real easy to bet on the horse who won the race after the race is over. So I don't like playing that game. No, it hasn't worked out, but they've got all this money. So who the fuck cares if they've got to pay 5 extra million for this guy or that guy? The
They
trade,
do.
This
They
this
do.
is a team that cares. This is
look,
not a spendthrift team.
fair. It's a very fair point. But hey, one of my favorite tweets of the week is on opening day, the Bengals they do have an opportunity to raise the banner of they won the Super Bowl of lowest dead cap in the league or something like that. Like they're great about
Oh yeah.
no dead cap money. But I turned to Jake last night, and I think it's inevitable that, and this one is going to work out well in the end for the Bengals, which is a very rare one, because of the person Hendrickson is and who he is and what's
Yeah.
going on. He's coming back.
That's the report from Raypian this morning, was that he's turning. He wants to stay. Hill says he wants to stay. You
Right.
know.
This never turned into a Carson Palmer or the Jesse. It never got ugly. Well, not a Jesse Bates because they never were trade. We haven't had this situation where with one guy left, 1 year left, and he hasn't turned. I mean, the guy is just freaking class to the
Yeah.
end and is just seems like an absolutely outstanding human being. He did an appearance at a hospital in his Bengals uniform the other day. He's coming back. Jamar's going to get done. I have no reason
Look,
to think T's not going to get done. All three of them are back, but in a month, in 2 weeks or a month, when this is all said and done, we're going to sit here and say this is the same team as last year. And
Yeah.
I like the one. I'll pivot a little bit to the guys they're signing. TJ Shelton, it's a nice signing. Is he DJ Reader? No.
Mm.
The one thing that cracks me up about Shelton is on the ESPN run blocking grade, he was the number one ranked defensive tackle in the league. And on PFF, he was one of the worst. What that means, that he's probably somewhere in the middle. But he's a big, fat, 380-pound run blocker. We didn't have one of those last year. You put him next to BJ Hill. Jenkins takes a year, it takes a step up.
Step up. Yeah.
They've done a couple of small things. They got Sample back. They got a side back. BJ Hill's obviously coming back. The linebacker that they signed from Philadelphia, I don't remember what the hell his name is. That's one to watch. It's his second contract. I think he's 30. One of those can't be right. It wouldn't be a second contract and him being 30,
Burks? Burks is
but
like 25. First,
okay, so it
Yeah.
is his first contract. Okay, somebody else they signed is 30. Um, it's he was a special teams player. He was a role player on defense. And then last year, and it was either week 17 or 18, who was it, Jake? Nakobe Dean got hurt, pillar stone to their defense. And this guy was huge in the last 1 or 2 weeks of the regular season and had a phenomenal playoffs. If he's truly going to take a leap, we got him at a steal for 2 years, $5 million. Everything I'm reading is that Golden wants to use three linebackers. We've always played with two. I don't know who the third one's going to be. I don't know if Pratt's back, but this
Right.
very well could be a starter. And we could be talking about this in October, November, and then again in January, February, as this signing being an absolute steal, or we may never hear about this guy because he's 80
I think
just playing special teams.
I think that's a little bit optimistic, personally. I don't. I mean, he's going to start, but I don't think he's. Look, linebackers are important for what Golden wants to do, so he's. I mean, he's going to have a role, but I don't. I mean, this guy's not going to turn into like a all-world type of player.
No,
But
I don't expect that.
but like I think I don't want to play this game where we're like being just overly optimistic about
I
what
know
this
you're right.
team looks like. The optimism is that there's a new face in there. And that's like all of this optimism is around Al Golden.
Yes.
The fact that when he was here, him and Lou obviously was a big part of that. But Al Golden too, that's why he got the Notre Dame job, was very good at getting the most out of our players. And we saw last year specifically that Lou wasn't doing that, and in parts in 2023 as well. So the Bengals defense has not had like a type of motivator, overachiever in that coaching staff in a few years, whether that Lou just fell off a cliff or whatever ended up happening. That's where the
Sometimes their
optimism
message
is.
just gets stale. I mean,
Yeah.
that's not. It's not
Yeah,
anything
no,
personal. Sometimes,
And we
yeah.
talk about that
everything
all
has
the
a
time.
shelf
Go ahead,
life.
Jake. Go ahead, Jake.
Everything has a shelf life. They kind of failed upwards until Lou. Remember, I said this all the time. He was the last coordinator, offense or defense, in that 2019 cycle. Lou was the Bengals were the last team to fill a coordinator void. That was that super late off season that didn't start because Taylor was coaching the Super Bowl with the Rams, and they didn't hire Anarumo until like a week before the combine. Actually, to this day, probably still remains like their best draft because they've already given Wilson an extension. They're going to give Higgins an extension, and they already gave Burrow an extension. So 3 extensions in one draft class. It's really good for the Bengals.
Yeah.
But where this team is right now, like I don't want to just be like, well, they've kept the same guys, so hopefully Golden gets everyone to take this leap. There's a quote going around from Duke Tobin at the combine where he's like, I don't want to spend more money on the same team. Well, that buddy,
That's what
that's
you're doing.
exactly what you're doing. Like whether or not you sign Tevin Jenkins or whether or not you go out and sign someone else, because they need two guards and they probably need a corner.
Yeah.
Like they can do that and do these little ticky tacky 1-2 year cheap deals that they're fucking up the structure of because they have no idea what they're doing. The whole encapsulation of this remains the same, that they will be spending more money on the same team because of what you said earlier, Mark,
Yeah.
that they waited. And that I know you tried to bail them out a little bit, but like
I did.
we like no, like when has the market ever gone down? The market continues to go up. Now, I don't blame them for not signing Jamar because they got a fucking brilliant season out of aggressive, pissed off Jamar because he didn't get an extension like Jefferson did after year 3. Normally, you get extended after year 4 if you're a first round pick. Rarely ever after year 3 like Jefferson did. But the Higgins situation was awful. This should have been done a year ago. This has gone on way too far, and now the market for Higgins is much more comparable to what Metcalf got. So
Yeah.
that's what sucks. Jamar's market went up because he won the Triple
He made
Crown,
his own market.
not because
Right.
Metcalf got 33 million, but now the T Higgins market has gone up by at least 30%. So that is
Yeah.
where they fucked up and is just inexcusable because this is a position that is just filled with star power. And if it wasn't Metcalf setting the market, it was going to be the next guy.
Yeah, no. Listen, they could have got him for probably 25 million a year last year, and avoided 47 million because they paid 21 last year,
Yeah.
and they could have routed that into this contract, and they're paying 26 this year. They could have worked that out. Now Higgins is a $30 million at least.
Yeah. But also, like one more thing on that, just like I don't think the Bengals are hesitant to give him a high AAV. What it always has come down to with this team
Guaranteed
is
money.
the guaranteed money.
Yeah.
Um, and like we can't pretend to know what those numbers were when they were negotiating last year, but I'm sure that they were pretty close in AAV, but they didn't want to give T all the guaranteed money because of the injury history. And after last year, he got injured again. I don't know if those worries are gone from Cincinnati's side. It's stupid, and it's because like teams have dead cap. Teams, players get hurt. It happens, but you have to
Well,
like keep these types of players
Yeah.
with a player like Joe Burrow as your quarterback, and like these teams are making big swings. And Bengals are out here just twiddling their thumbs.
yeah,
The one
no,
thing that bothers me, the one thing that bothers me the most is it's funny. You look at obviously every organization runs differently and the way they handle things. And there's teams out here signing guys left, teams with cap signing guys left and right. And then you pull up their depth chart and it's like, but where the hell are these guys going to play? Where's everybody going to play? And the team's mindset is, well, shit, we'll figure it out. I feel that the Bengals approach free agency very meticulously with their draft or with their depth chart being, all right, we've got BJ Hill on the defensive line. We're good there. We've got TJ Shelton and Chris Jenkins next to him. We're good there. And the depth that they build in behind that is just scrubs, and they don't account for injuries and they don't amass wealth other than, I mean, what, Jamar and T and on the offensive side of the ball. And we've seen that with the offensive line time and time again. Right now, our starting guards are Cody Ford and Cordell Volston.
yeah, yeah,
Now, there's plenty of guards still out there. Jake, you alluded to this earlier. If the Bengals can sign two guards, all of a sudden that makes Cody Ford and Cordell Volstead two guys that can't start in the NFL, backups, and go sign Asante Samuel. Go sign one other defensive player. And I think the draft, I saw draft grades, or excuse me, free agency grades on all 32 teams last night. We all know that's horseshit, but take it for
right.
what it's worth. A couple teams got Fs. The Bengals and one other team, it was incomplete because they haven't freaking done anything. You go sign two guards. Go sign any two of Jenkins, Scherf, and Becton, and Asante Samuel. It doesn't. I don't even care what position. Go sign somebody on defense that can make a difference. And all of a sudden, everything changes because it is a deep draft on the interior line and the edge. And I don't think there's any doubt that the first two rounds are going to be an interior guy and a pass rush guy in the first two rounds. Now, I don't like having to pigeon yourself into that, but the Bengals have done that and it's worked out the last couple of years. But that's my take.
Yeah, so Jenkins, I hear is going to visit Seattle. I mean, we don't even have his visit scheduled with him.
Who is?
Well, I mean, Rapine said today like that is just a placeholder. Like if a team gives him what he wants, he'll sign, kind of
Right.
thing. Which makes sense. Samuel is a type of guy the Bengals would. I'm not surprised they haven't signed him yet. I mean, he's young, he's cheap because of the injury last year. He has that pedigree. Um,
Guy's good.
I look. I mean, I don't want to sugarcoat anything. I mean, he was a good player for 1 year of the 4 years he was on the Chargers. I
That's
mean,
it. He only had one good year.
well, he missed 12, 13 games last year. So again, he's cheap. Teams are hesitant to sign him because of the injury. So maybe that's why the Bengals don't want him. But look, I don't know. I think that maybe one of the reasons why free agency is so slow right now is because the Bengals are negotiating with all these players at once.
Yeah,
Kind of thing.
maybe.
Yeah, right.
I
They
still
might. No, this is their time to shine.
Listen, we've been saying this. I feel like I've been saying this 100 times, but we're still holding out hope that T changed his agent, and so he's got the same agent as Jamar, and we can get both deals done. Just do it together. Have Burrow throw in some concession, restructure or something,
The
and get
money's not the problem. The money's not the problem.
They don't need to restructure Burrow. They,
They don't have
they
to.
just don't
All the
want
money in the world.
like
It's what Jake said. It's all about how much guaranteed money. They don't
right.
care if Jamar's making 42 million a year. They don't care if T's making 31 million a year. It's how much do they got to put in that goddamn escrow account.
Yeah, well, that's a rule. I just think that's a rule that needs to change because it favors the richer owners. you have the Cronkies that
But
have.
that's for the player.
Then
The
sell the
money's gonna
team.
sit there.
The team's worth way more than when he bought it 80 years ago when he
Oh yeah,
was
no,
40
it's
years old.
yeah, no, it's billions.
Yeah,
So
they're
you
just
know,
Then
fine. They're just
then
fine.
sell. I mean, like sell the team. Like I don't. Again, like we're here bailing these guys out. Like every other team does this.
right?
Right.
No,
Every team
and
does
this,
this for their star
We've
players.
talked about this before. Every owner, 31 out of 32 owners in the NFL made their billions through oil or real estate
something other than football,
food, whatever. The Browns and the Bengals, the Browns meaning the Brown family, the
right?
Bengals are the only team whose ownership's fortune came from the football team.
Right.
That's why the Bengals have a that's why they are struck for cash. Like they don't have they point blank they don't have as much of that for that exact reason because they it's all I mean it's all tied up in the Bengals.
Right.
Yeah. No, I mean, literally, you guarantee $250 million. $250 million
Right.
has to be sitting in escrow account.
Right.
So,
That term is I just bet on sports. I don't know about business, but that term is like it's all liquid, right? Or liquid is actually having the cash.
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
You
they
understand, the escrow part of the guaranteed
yeah, yeah,
contract.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, of
And
course.
you
Yeah.
But
physically
like
have
they
to part
But
right.
with the
Jared,
money.
If
yes.
you
It's
Yeah,
earning
but
interest,
Jared,
but you don't
right.
control it, and you actually
Like
have to put it there. It's not like an IOU is put
right.
there. You have
yeah,
to.
Right.
Jake,
Like
liquid means you have the cash. If a man owns five apart condo buildings, he's absolutely loaded. He's worth $10 million. But if all the money is tied up in the condos, he is not liquid. He has no capital.
Yeah.
so
He has
when,
asset.
a lot of the cap analysts for Bengals, there's a lot of them out there on Twitter, people watching the show, I'm sure they follow them, but they mentioned the term like cash problem. Like all these media people, they're saying, "Oh, did the Bengals have enough cap?" Like, fuck, yes, they do. They have tons of cap, but the cash problem, like the straight
Yes.
up putting this money into the escrow account for the duration of the contract, that is the issue. They want to lower that number, limit that number as much as possible, and still sign the player.
Yes. One of my
Yeah.
favorite non-Bengals of all time said it best. Mark, you probably know where I'm going.
Go
Straight
for it.
cash, homie. Straight cash, homie. Straight
Yes.
costs.
Yeah. So it's like I said, I think the rule it should be more like reserves on a direct deposit accounts for bank. They have to maintain a certain percentage of their deposits on hand and not be the whole amount because it favors teams like the Rams where they have unlimited cash. So, all right, well, as Bengal fans, it's frustrating. We're sitting here. We wanted to be able to say, "Hey, we said we'd do a show as soon as there was news, and then there's no news." So we
No
finally
news is
had to
news.
put something up where we were going to complain that there was no news. That's the
Mark,
news.
Mark, you guys wrap up. I got to jump. I apologize. Who day?
Good day. Take care. All right. So let's see. Do you have a preference to whether you like Jenkins or Becton or they said Becton wasn't a fit, is what I've read.
Um,
I don't know.
he's a little big. I don't know if that's why. He's like a big guard, so that's probably why. But his athleticism isn't like terrible. I mean, I don't. I'm sure.
Listen, it's
So I I loved both players as prospects. They have not panned out in the NFL. Jenkins got a lot or Philly got a lot out of him last year. I don't know if the Bengals can get a lot out of Becton. I'm sure that's why a lot of people like Becton, but NFL teams look at it a little bit differently. They don't be like, oh, this team got a lot out of him, so we're going to be able to as well. I think on the surface, Jenkins is probably a little bit better,
right.
but I don't. I like they just need to sign someone.
Listen, I want to see a signing. So, I mean, that's pretty much like I said, as a fan base, we're very frustrated because
Yeah.
we feel like nothing's going on. So, we can't fix everything with the draft. So they've got to get some quality bodies in there and not just the same team. So,
Well, that's been another issue is like they have drafted for need because they have set themselves up so thin on the roster. They have
yeah,
not been able to draft best player available. The McKinley Jackson pick last year was completely unserious. Like in that moment, it was a need. It was a huge need, and that they didn't that they shouldn't have been in that spot to make that draft pick.
agreed. So, all right, well, we'll sit and we'll wait and we'll hope and And like I said, you want to make this fan base happy, go out and sign Jenkins, get the T and Chase contracts done, and keep Trey in the building. Or get that done. He wants to stay. Let's make it happen. So, um, so let's
Yeah.
like I said, as a fan base, we just wait. Throw in the comments if there's anybody we missed that you think we should be putting down there or anything. Please, to let us know. Put it in the comments. So what do you think? We got a tournament coming up. This is an interesting NCAA tournament coming up. I'm shifting over to gambling now since we're pretty much out of complaining about the Bengals sitting on their hands. So yeah, this is one of those tournaments where I mean, there's 4 or 5 teams I like that could win it all. I mean, it really
Yeah,
is.
I think I would extend that a little bit, maybe to 6, maybe 7. Um, but yeah, I mean, normally we go into the tournament with like there's, X amount of teams that can win. Um, I don't necessarily think that like I think the gap between the top teams and the middle tier teams is wider than normal, so we actually might get some like just want like a really great Elite Eight slate, Final Four slate, which never really ends up falling that way. Um, but I think that the teams I'm looking at that I think are built for this tournament that can go kind of further and have a higher ceiling are teams like Alabama. Like obviously Duke and Auburn are really good.
Right.
I think Duke's better. Um, I think that a team like Florida, Alabama,
I like Florida.
Texas Tech are ones that are really built for the tournament. I think a team like Michigan State too. I think is pretty solid. They don't really shoot very well. St. John's, Tennessee, Texas A&M. Those are teams that like they don't shoot the ball well at all. They just play a lot of defense and rely on just suffocating opponents. And I just don't think that that translates great to the tournament. I think St. John's is a pretty big fraud. I've called them the Big East merchants
Right.
because the Big East was so bad this year. Um, I think Tennessee's better than them for sure. Houston, I question their ceiling, but they can actually shoot this year. I just
Right.
don't know if they play fast enough and have enough alpha scores. But look, I mean, a team like I think Texas Tech, Maryland, I like a lot because they have tons of guards. They have two great bigs. Um, they play fast enough. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. Don't count out Iowa State. They're not currently healthy. Two of their best players did not play yesterday when they lost. Um, so keep an eye on that. But at full strength, when they've been at full strength this year, they've been one of the best teams in the country. But I would look to avoid in terms of like Final Four bets or filling out your bracket. I'm avoiding St. John's. I'm avoiding Tennessee. I'm avoiding
Yeah, I don't like
um,
Tennessee.
A&M, and I'm selling high on Houston as well.
Right. I'll have Houston going deep, but I won't have them as a champion. I think. I
Yeah,
think.
like Houston's not going to lose to the a 10 seed. I
Right.
mean, they almost lost to A&M last year as an 8 seed, but no, like Houston's floor is very high. But once we get to that second weekend, I think if they run into a team like Maryland or like BYU that's can play physical and they can just shoot the fuck out of the ball, um, it's gonna be tough for them to kind of keep up. And that's the same problem with St. John's too. Um, yeah,
Yeah. I like the way Florida's playing coming in, so I'm definitely going to
Florida,
have them.
Florida, I think is the like for being a top 4 team. I think they're the least talked about team in the country. They
Yeah.
have wins over Auburn and Alabama. Um, they really don't have a bad loss
No, I like I
besides
said,
losing to Georgia.
they're one of my favorites going in there, so it'll be interesting. So you got a game you like this weekend?
Yeah, there's a few today. I think UNC covers against Duke.
Okay.
That that game's at 7 Eastern time. And then I think Purdue beats Michigan. That's also a
Okay.
9 Eastern start time.
So they get a couple. If you haven't watched this show, Jake's been very good. I know you went 50-50. You went 1-1 on the last 2 picks.
Mm.
Um, I think Villanova was a slam dunk, but then I can't remember what the next pick was, but was not. So
Oh, I know it was A&M over Tennessee, I think it
Yes, that's
was.
what it was. Yes.
And Tennessee made like 16 threes for
Oh
the
my
first time in their
gosh.
program
Every time
history.
they needed a three, they pulled it out. See, you could tell that I bet your picks because I was watching that game. And I try to not hold on to those bad images. But yes, every time they needed a three, they got a three. It looked like A&M was going to take control, A&M, and then he didn't. So it was just one of those things. So, but no, so definitely there's a couple possible winners for you there. And he just helped you fill out your bracket so you won't look like a fool when you get to the Elite Eight. You'll have 6 teams there. So for those of you that bet the pool, so please remind and hey, throw your if there's a team you like that you think's going all the way that we didn't talk about, please throw that in. We can. I love gambling talk, so throw that in the comments. Remind them where they can find all your stuff.
Yeah, Jake Circus podcast on Spotify. Follow me on Twitter at Jake Circus. And I'll be on a bunch of live shows for Bleacher Report over the next few days when the brackets come out, when the lines come out. So keep an eye on my Twitter for that. I'll be posting those links and stuff if you want to hear me go more in depth about kind of pretty much all the games and once we get these matchups on Sunday night.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And if you don't subscribe, please subscribe. It's all we ask. Hit the bell so you know when we put up our videos. During the season, we do the previews of the recaps right after the game. But right now, we're waiting for news. And I want to point out to everybody that we have this incredible run of once we do a show, news breaks. So
Yes.
we did our last show. Rankins got released right after I mean, literally an hour after I posted the video, and then Kappa went the next day. So news happens right after we do the show. So maybe, and that was maybe subconsciously, that was one of the reasons why I made sure we put a show up this week. Maybe we get T, Jamar, Trey, Jenkins, some kind of news. Some positive news to make Bengal fans feel better about this because this has not been an exciting free agency period so far. So hopefully that changes. So please support the channel. It's by fans for fans. It's all we ask. And with that, I'm going to say, hoot, everybody. Take care.